Guys, don't believe everything you read on Twitter. Yes, it's true that we have a lot of short sellers who have sold our shares short. But all the stuff that you read about market manipulation and failed delivers and all this other stuff, and the billions of synthetic shares out there, that's not our problem. Our problem is one thing and one thing only. I want to take you back in time. Back in 2019, none of us had ever heard the word COVID-19. And AMC was the largest movie theater chain in the world. Still is, by the way. But the movie industry was a lot bigger in 2019. The basic size of our industry is measured in what's called the domestic box office. That's all theaters, all brands, all companies, all across the United States and Canada, the domestic box office. For 5 years in a row, from 2015 to 2019, the domestic box office was not less than $11 billion. 11 billion plus. Some years 11.1, some years 11.9, some years 11.4, always over 11 billion. COVID comes in 2020. And in the span of a week, we had to shut all of our theaters, every single one. 1,000 theaters in more than a dozen countries. And that year, 2020, do you know what the domestic box, and our theaters were shut, by the way, on March 16. They didn't really open up again until Labor Day, and that was just some of the theaters. The theaters in New York and California didn't open up until early in 2021. You know what the domestic box office was in 2020? Remember, so, uh-oh, that's not good. This flickering power, this has been going on all night. It's the snow outside.
Yeah, we don't need that.
But from what I've been told, it like only flickers for like 1 to 10 seconds, and then it comes back on. It's a problem if we're in the middle of the movie, but we're not yet in the middle of the movie. So there we go. We'll see what happens when the movie starts. Anyway, the box office was over 11 billion in 2019. It was $2.2 billion in 2020. It was down 82%. And if you're a big company, and AMC's a big company, like we're not the biggest, we're not like General Motors, like in Detroit, or Ford. We're a pretty big company.
Biggest movie company.
And you know, when you lose 80% of your revenues in a week, big companies weren't designed for that. We have fixed costs, we had leases, we've got rent to pay on 1,000 theaters, and we've got employees to pay. And we've got all sorts of fixed costs all over the place. You can't turn the air conditioning and the heat off for 5 months when the theaters are closed. And there was one, we know that because one of our competitors tried that. And they turned the heat and the power off and the air conditioning off for 5 months. And when they were ready to reopen, they had mold all over the entire building, and they literally have to gut the building to the studs. It's $11 million worth of damage because they turned off the electricity in one building. We have 1,000 buildings. Can you imagine if we did that? Anyway, so we started to bleed cash. And the box office has gotten bigger, but it's not big enough yet. We are on a road to recovery, but the recovery is slow. So remember, the box office was $11.4 billion in 2019. It was $2.2 billion in 2020. The good news, in 2021, it more than doubled. It was $4.5 billion. But $4.5 billion isn't $11 billion. And in 2022, the year we just completed, the box office grew again by about 2/3, and it was $7.4 billion. $7.4 billion is a lot more than $4.5 billion, but it's a lot less than $11.4 billion. And so we're still going to bleed cash if a company that's designed to be strong in an $11.5 billion industry is sitting in a $7.5 billion industry. So we have only one problem. And it's not market manipulation, and it's not synthetic shares, and it's not naked shorting, and it's not all the things that you read on Twitter. It's this: we need more movies. Because if we have more movies, we'll have more moviegoers. And if we have more moviegoers, we'll have more revenues. And if we have more revenues, we'll make a profit instead of a loss. It's that simple. And fortunately, it looks like finally we're gonna get some movies in 2023. And that's why when I looked at that trailer package, I don't know, you were seeing like actors and special effects. I was seeing dollar signs all across those screens. And like I'm thinking, how many people are gonna go see that Indiana Jones movie? Everybody.
Fast and Furious.
And I don't know how many people are going to go see the Michael Jordan movie called Air.
Yeah.
But everybody should. That's the best trailer I've seen in years.
Yep.
That movie is going to be phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so encouraged. Because we're going to have movies again in 2023. Here's what happened, and it started about a year ago. In December of 21, when the movie Spider-Man No Way Home came out from Sony. It was the 7th biggest, highest grossing movie of all time in the 110-year history of cinema. 7th biggest. And it was followed a couple of months later by other movies that were big. Then came Memorial Day weekend. God bless Tom Cruise. I have seen Top Gun Maverick 5 times, literally 5 times. And the 5th time was on an airplane going out to Los Angeles last week. It's much better on a big screen, by the way, much. But it's still pretty good on an airplane screen. And the reason I watched it, I was going out to LA to attend a dinner where Tom Cruise was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award for his entire career. And I thought, you know, it'd be poetic if I'm going to the event where Tom Cruise is being feted for his incredible career, which the biggest movie he's ever done in his career is Top Gun Maverick. I should watch Top Gun Maverick again. It's the 5th time. I knew every word. I knew every plot twist. I loved the movie again. That movie grossed $1.5 billion in movie theaters. And what that taught Hollywood studios is you can make a lot of money if you release movies in movie theaters. $1.5 billion, that's a lot of money. And up until that point, every major studio except for Sony, well, and Lionsgate, no, even Lionsgate, because they've got stars. Every major studio was experimenting with their streaming service. Disney Plus and HBO Max and Peacock and Paramount Plus and on and on and on. Stars with Lionsgate. And the conventional wisdom at the end of 2021 and early in 22 was that, and all you had to do was pick up a newspaper or magazine. By the way, they still have newspapers. You just don't actually see them on paper. They're in digital versions, digital copy. And like all these 25-year-old journalists are saying, what's a movie theater? Like that's an anachronism. Everybody wants to watch a movie on their phone and their tablet and their home TV. No, they don't. And you know why we know that? Because you all were imprisoned in your houses for like a year during COVID. And like, I bet you have a nice house. And if you don't have a nice house, I bet you got a nice apartment. And I bet you wanted to get out of it, right? People have been going to movie theaters for more than 100 years. It's a big thing that people like to do. It's the second most popular out-of-home experience in the United States, second only to going out to eat at a restaurant. And you want to know how big the movie theater industry is? In 2019, the year before the pandemic, movie theater industry sold 1 billion tickets. You want to know how many tickets 1 billion tickets is? You got some real professional sports teams in this town. So let's start with the NFL. Take every team in the NFL, every game, all season long, the entire home attendance of every game in the NFL all season long. Add to that the entire attendance of every Major League Baseball team. Every team, all season long, 162 game season. Every one of those games, every one of those cities, every one of those stadiums, all year long. Add to it the NBA, add to it the NHL, add to it Major League Soccer, add up all those tickets. In 2019, movie theaters sold 7 times the tickets of all the professional sports, every team, all season long, combined. It's a big deal, movie theaters. And Top Gun reminded the Hollywood studio executives that if they were just going to do streaming, they were losing an enormous market. Movie theaters gross worldwide, not just the US and Canada, but worldwide, movie theaters in 2019 grossed $43 billion. More than half of that goes to the studios. So call it that studios take on that is call it $25 billion. You really think it's a smart idea to light a match at $25 billion? And guess what? The studios discovered theaters again. So Top Gun Maverick was a huge hit. Right after that was Jurassic World Dominion and the Minions movie, and on and on and on. And I'll take you through every title. Black Panther Wakanda in November. But then comes Christmas, December 16th. God bless James Cameron. James Cameron gave us Avatar: The Way of Water, the sequel to the 2009 Avatar movie. A 13-year wait for the sequel to Avatar. Come on in, welcome. Avatar was nominated for 11 Oscars. I think it won 7, I'm not sure exactly, 7 or 8. Won Best Picture in 2009. Its sequel comes out in 2022. Guess what Avatar grossed? In 11 weeks, Avatar grossed almost $2.3 billion in movie theaters. Only in movie theaters. And now every Hollywood studio is scrambling to release more movies in theaters. And this trailer package you just saw, you saw that there are a ton of good movies coming in 2023. And this is going to be a big year. I don't think we're going to get all the way back to 11.5 billion, but I think we'll cross 9 billion. I think we'll be way above 7.4 billion. And how far above 9 billion we go, I don't know yet. We'll all find out together. Depends on you. But last year, meaning 2022, there were 18 movies that were released that grossed $100 million or more. Mm-hmm. We believe that in 2023, based on the titles that are coming and what similar movies do and have done, we think that there will be somewhere between 30 and 35 movies this year that gross more than $100 million. Things are really looking up. We are on a path to recovery. And I believe that our revenues will be bigger in 2022 and 2023 than in 2022. I think our profits will be more significant in 23 than in 2022. And for those of you who are hanging with us for the long haul, you can see recovery coming. And let me just demonstrate how things can change in just a year. The basic lifeblood of a company is its EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. That's the cash that the company generates before interest payments. And even in 22, even with the box office only at $7.4 billion, which is terrible, by the way, 35% below 2019. Our EBITDA was up compared to 2021 by $338 million in 1 year. A $338 million rise in our profitability or our cash generation in 1 year. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is it went from negative $300 million to just like peanuts, Our EBITDA was like $46 million in 2022. This company cannot survive if its EBITDA is only $46 million. But if our revenues are more, our industry-wide, are $1.5 billion or more higher than it was in 2022, we're going to have some healthy EBITDA. Not enough, but healthy. You can see recovery coming. So that's the good news, because for those of you who've been with us for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, January 21, the fight of 801, wherever you came in. By the way, 801 was nothing. 3 weeks before 801, AMC stock was trading at $1.91 a share. 3 weeks earlier, $1.91. That's where I start the measuring stick. And some of you have hung with us for a very long time. What will determine whether we succeed or fail is whether this recovery really happens. And at the end of the day, how the company performs and is it profitable, that will dwarf all the other issues. If this company is still losing $300 million of EBITDA or only making $40 million of EBITDA, those short sellers aren't going away. But if this company goes from negative, I think it was 300 to 3 something, I could do the math. Maybe it was 295 or something. But anyway, let's call it negative 300. If this company could go from negative 300 to positive 45 to positive 300 to 400 to positive 700 to 800 to more than that, if this company can do that, those short sellers are going to have to cover. They're betting against the company succeeding. And the rest of the stuff that you hear on Twitter is just noise. And what you need to follow is, what's our movie-going attendance? What are our revenues? What are our EBITDA? And as you know, we report it publicly every 3 months. So you can see for yourselves how we're doing. I do think the year is going to be back-end loaded. I think the first quarter is going to be a little tough. I think it's going to get bigger as the year goes on. Second quarter looks really good. Third quarter looks okay. Fourth quarter looks great. And I'm really optimistic that by 2024, possibly 2025, but hopefully 2024, which means like next year, we'll be right back in the swing of things. And, but that takes me to the most important message of the night. And that's, how do you get from where we are to where we're going to be? Notice I didn't say where we want to be. I said where we are going to be, with recovery finally coming. And the answer is, you put a lot of cash in the bank so that you can ride out this horrible COVID storm. We are 3 full years after COVID hit in March of 26, and we're still down as an industry. We're still down 35% in our revenues. That's really tough. Let me tell you something, guys. All the profits in the last third of the attendance. The first 2/3 just goes to cover your fixed costs. All the money that you make in the last third, and we don't have the last third yet, but it's going to start to show up this year and next year and in 2025. So the way to survive is you raise a lot of money. And this is where you come in. Because I got to tell you something, and I say it from the heart. You guys saved AMC. It's that simple. Between September of 2020 and June of 2021, we raised $2.2 billion by selling stock to the public. It's called equity. And we put that $2.2 billion in the bank, and we didn't do anything with it other than support our movie theater company, except I spent $28 million to buy a quarter of a gold mine. Which people think I'm nuts, but we're going to make so much money from that investment in the gold mine.
Don't worry, we're crazy too.
Yeah. I so fundamentally believe we will quadruple our investment in that gold mine. It's going to take 2 to 4 years to do it. But I've said publicly, he who laughs last, laughs best. And there's going to be a lot of crow eating coming. 2, 3, 4 years from now, and I'm not going to be the one who's eating a damn crow, let me tell you. But anyway, but other than that, and by the way, when you have $2 billion, 28 million, it's like 1%, right? And it's a lot of gold, it's a lot of silver. But other than that $28 million, we put every penny into our movie theater business. And that's not totally true. I put $1 million into like creating home popcorn. And it's finally coming, by the way. And we just tweeted last week. This week, we tweeted this week. This week. I showed you the beautiful packaging. And I showed you like a little 7-Eleven. We're actually making microwave pouches. And on Tuesday, we announced that we're launching at 2,600 Walmart stores. Do you know what it's like to have a new product and get into 2,600 Walmart stores? That is so huge. And the reason why Walmart is not doing a little, 100 store test or 200 store test, they know the brand, they know about you and your enthusiasm for our company. They saw our packaging and they tasted our popcorn. And it's fabulous. And it's going to sell like hotcakes.
Yep.
No, it's going to sell like hot popcorn. It's going to sell like crazy. And I know that because once you're up there in a grocery store, by the way, we gave Walmart a 6-month exclusive, but after Walmart's exclusive runs out, we'll take it to a lot of other supermarket chains around the country. Hopefully 7-Eleven will carry us. When our popcorn is put right next up against all the others, like, they don't know anything about popcorn. Do you know how much popcorn we sell? This company, on a big day, not every day, but on a big day, we sell 50 tons of popcorn in a day. And popcorn doesn't weigh anything. Do you know how hard it is to sell 50 tons of popcorn in a day when it doesn't weigh anything? Anyway, it's another success. And that idea came from you guys, by the way. But other than the money we put into gold and silver lining and popcorn at home, the rest of that money went into our theaters. And we finished the year with $840 million of cash still sitting in our bank account. If we hadn't raised the money that we raised, if we didn't have $840 million of cash, we would have been toast. And you know how I can prove that? Because we're the largest movie theater company in the world. The second largest movie theater company in the world. We're AMC in the US, Odeon in Europe. They're Cineworld in Europe and Regal in the United States. You've probably heard of Regal Theaters. They filed for bankruptcy in early September of 2022. You know why? Because they ran out of cash. Mm-hmm. They had literally had like $4 or $5 million of cash. That's it. You can't run a big company on $4 or $5 million of cash. $4 or $5 million of cash lasts like an hour. And they're still, it's 6 months later, and they're still in bankruptcy court, still fighting between the company and the creditors and shutting theaters all over the place. The future is not bright for companies that file for Chapter 11, and they filed for Chapter 11 because they ran out of money. The same month that they ran out of money, with September, it's a quarter end, so we announce everything every quarter, right? We announced that we had more than $900 million of cash in the same month that they ran out of cash. And I do not want to run out of cash, ever. That's why we raised the money the last time. I don't want to run out of cash in 2023. And I don't even want to run down our cash. I don't want to enter 2024 on fumes. I would have a lot of money in the bank. I'd love to have as much money in the bank at the beginning of 24 as we had at the beginning of 2023. And the only way we can do that is if we continue to sell stock in the market. Again, if you read Twitter, you keep on hearing about dilution. It's so wrong. Do you know when the first time we sold stock, not the first time we did a little bit. The first time we sold a lot of stock was January 21. We diluted a lot. We raised 400 bucks, $1 billion. Now I think in the span of a week, we raised $1.3 billion of equity by selling what was then AMC shares. We diluted our stock by like 80% or something. You know what happened to our stock? It quintupled. At the same time, we diluted the shares. In May, we raised over $1 billion of equity in the month of May of 2021. At the same time that that dilution was happening, you know what happened to our stock price? It went from 10 to 50. You know what happened in July of 21? We asked the shareholders to let us have more shares because we were out. And the shareholders were too split. There were still people talking about dilution. And so I pulled the shareholder vote. We were unable to get an affirmative vote, so we pulled the vote. We stopped dilution. You know what happened to our stock? It went from 50 to 10. You know what's going to happen when we issue more equity and more cash? I don't know. We're going to find out together. But past indicators suggest if you do it right, you're strengthening the company. And if you make the company stronger, you blow the short thesis to hell. And that's when shorts have to cover. So, in August of 2022, we created something called APES, Preferred Stock. And by the way, APE stands for, and it trades on the New York Stock Exchange, as you all know, under the symbol APE. It stands for AMC Preferred Equity. That's all it stands for. Anything else is purely coincidental. Just pure coincidence. But guess what? So we created those apes in August, and we waited a month to start selling any, because we were afraid that if we started selling them right away, people would say, "Oh, we were selling equity, and that's why the share price moved whatever way it would move." We wanted to give it a full month so that it could find its level, whatever its level was. And exactly 1 month after we released the apes, we started selling them on September 22. Right about the same time, we announced third quarter earnings. And, you know, I already said 2022 is a rough year. We burned through a lot of cash in 2022. Guess what the press was, and Cineworld Regal filed for Chapter 11. Guess what the press was filled with? AMC's next. AMC's going to file for bankruptcy. And guys, it like cut our stock price in half. All the talk about AMC's going to file for bankruptcy. And it emboldened short sellers to continue to hold, because the conventional wisdom was that AMC is in trouble. You know what our answer to that was? We sold a lot of apes. And we sold and raised over $300 million in cash between September and December of 2022. And we're going to do it again. And that's why we're going to make it. We're going to outlast the pandemic, because we're going to guarantee that we have the resources to make it. And if we make it, and well, I should say if, when, right? You're gonna,
Yes, sir.
you got it. I got it before you. I paused and then you said no. When we make it, that's when the short sellers are going to have to fess up to the fact that AMC is here for the long haul. Which takes us to the shareholder vote. There is one thing that went wrong when we created the apes. An ape, an AMC preferred equity unit, is literally exactly the same thing as an AMC common share. It has the same economic rights, it has the same voting rights, it's the same thing. But from the first week, the apes were selling in the market for less than the AMC common stock was selling. And it got so bad that by December, when we announced this March shareholder meeting and putting apes and common back together, and the fact that Antara was willing to give the company a lot of cash in exchange for apes. The ape the preferred equity unit was selling in the market for 1/7 the price of a common share. And remember, the only thing that we could sell were apes because we were out of common shares. And it just doesn't make any sense. You want to talk about dilution. When an ape is worth what should be worth what a common share is worth, but we're getting 1/7 the price for it than if we were to sell a common share. That's like terrible. So we announced, as you know, that we were going to take it to a shareholder vote to put the apes and the AMC back together, 1 for 1. And so if you held, we gave everybody apes back in August free. We gave, if you got 10 shares, you got 10 apes. If you got 100 shares, you got 100 apes. If you got 1,000 shares, you got 1,000 apes. We gave it to you free. Some of you have sold them, some of you held on to them. But our hope is that we can put them together, because when we do put them together, what's pretty clear is that the thing that we'll be able to sell to raise cash to survive and to thrive will then be AMC common shares after we put the ape and the AMC common back together. But we'll be doing it at a much higher price, or we should be doing it at a much higher price than we were just selling apes. So much so that when we announced this transaction to put the apes and the AMC back together, the ape was selling at 1/7 the price of the common, and it was selling for 69 cents. And it like quadrupled in 6 weeks. The ape did. It went up in value because people know that when you put the ape and the common back together, the ape is going to be more valuable. And if the ape's more valuable and we're selling it into the public, we might be able to raise 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times as much money from the sale of one ape, or what would then be a common share, than we would back when all we could sell was apes. So we have asked you all to approve this. And I've gone on Twitter over and over and over again saying it's important that you vote, and it's important that you vote in favor, because it's the smartest thing you can do. It's the smartest thing I can do. It's the smartest thing our company can do. It's the thing allowing us to raise cash at the best terms we can get, not the worst terms we can get. That's what will assure that this company survives. And if this company survives, then that's good for all our shareholders. That's what I want to tell you today. But I'd like to end my kind of diatribe up here by saying 2 words. But then I'll elaborate, because I always, but the sentiment is in the 2 words. Thank you. I don't say thank you lightly. I've spent 7 years running this company. This is the 5th company I've run since 1993. I ran the other 4 pretty successfully. I've been running this one pretty well, and I expect I'm going to be here for quite some time, and I'll continue to run it well. But we would not have made it if it weren't for you. You know what we had that Regal didn't have? We had 4 million apes. Mm-hmm. We had people who adopted our company and embraced our company and said, it's our family now. And we're not going to let this company die. And we're not going to let Wall Street destroy this company. And we're not going to take away moviegoing from the 1 billion tickets that were sold in 2019. People in this country have been going to movie theaters for over 100 years. I don't know about you, my first kiss was in the movie theater. I bet there are a few in this room who can say the same thing. It's the famous hand creep when you finally very sneakily, finally put your arm around your date. And the bravest place to do it was in the movie theater. A lot of us have been either on the giving or the receiving end of that hand sliding over in that first kiss. We want theaters to exist for our kids. We want theaters to exist for our grandkids. And there are a lot of other movie theater companies who went broke. not AMC. And because we're the industry leader and the largest around and probably the best and certainly the most innovative, people looked to us, and if we went down, if we faltered, if we failed, people really would think it's over for movies. But because AMC defied gravity, people believe that moviegoing will continue. And there's like only 1 in a quarter reasons why we didn't fail. Like my management team and I were the quarter of a reason, because we worked pretty hard and we were really smart. But the one reason is we had you. So we're about to watch Creed 3 together. After the movie's over, we're gonna go right outside. They got a Creed 3 standee outside and a boxing ring. We're all go take pictures and sign stuff and have a good time. And we'll talk a little bit more one-on-one where you can talk to me, that's just not me talking to you. But I end my little talk tonight. Thank you for saving moviegoing. Thank you for saving AMC. With that, let's cue the movie, Steve. Let's watch Michael B. Jordan in, not to be confused with the other Michael Jordan, who's got his own movie in April, in Creed 3. Thank you, everybody.